Hey, founders, I hope you're doing good. Today, we're going to talk about some tips that I recently gave another product manager about the differences between working with a startup and with a really large company. As you may know, I run my own community through my company, Southfound. I'm also part of some other communities, of which there are some Slack channels that I'm part of, where I regularly communicate with other entrepreneurs, other people in my industry, and those types of things. On one of the channels, I recently saw a question from a gentleman named Chandra, and Chandra was going from working at a startup and he had moved to a really large corporation. That change had sort of shocked his system a little bit, because working for a brand new startup or a new startup is a lot different than working for an 8,000 employee company. So I was able to connect with Chandra based on my experience and being a little bit older than he is, and shared with him my experience working with startups and in a very large company. So here's a couple of things that I told him. It really comes down to the things that are important to you. A while back, I wrote a book about a year ago called The Ladder or the Grind. You can see it over my shoulder here, this little yellow thing. And that book was all about understanding whether it was a better career path for a person, whether they were interested in what we would call the startup grind or climbing the corporate ladder. And what I came to realize in writing that book for myself, and when I shared it with others, is that this decision really falls down to the factors that are important to you in your career and in the company that you're going to work for. For Chandra, he was really interested in a company that moved super fast and had a lot of flexibility. When we think about that, that's what you see a startup having. Whereas most companies that are 7 or 8,000 employees strong may not have as much flexibility built into how they do things, and they may not move as fast as a 5-person startup. And I think that makes sense. So it really came down to, for Chandra, for understanding the factors that mattered to him. But I also encouraged him not to overlook the benefits that a large company can bring. So if we think about startups being flexible and moving quickly and being exciting and working on the latest and greatest thing, and maybe getting some equity in this company, and if it exit one day, getting a really big check, those are all pluses on that side. Large companies have pluses as well. Large companies have really large resources. So the company that I'm working for, we're launching the biggest project the company has ever done. I was fortunate enough to be part of the group that put that plan together. I'll be part of the group that's building this new product. And our company did not need to go outside for all the money we're going to need to build this. We didn't have to go to investors. We had deep pockets that we could put to use on that project. And that's a real benefit. Another benefit of large companies is just the sheer size and number of employees means that you won't have to wear as many hats as startup people do. When you're working in a 5-person startup, everybody is wearing multiple hats at the same time. In a large company, because there's so many people to put to use and so many resources from a HR perspective, you don't have to wear typically as many hats as maybe a startup would have to have. So these things go back and forth, both between pluses and minuses in favor of each. And what I really want to leave you with is the idea of sit down and think about the factors that matter to you. Write them out, assign them to one path or the other. What you may find is the trade-off for you to work like Chandra in a really big company is worth it because of the things that that large company represents and the resources it can offer you. All it took with him was me sharing some of those and putting them in a different light. And he realized that the opportunity he had stepped into was really not as bad as he thought it might be. So write these factors out, be completely honest with yourself. One of the other things to think about is just money. Really large companies tend to have more opportunities in terms of career progression. Maybe a startup grows fast enough where if you're early on, you can take on different titles and grow and make a lot of money, but that doesn't happen as often as it could happen with the right amount of hustle in a large company. So don't forget to think about these trade-offs. Don't write off a really large opportunity at a company that has a lot of employees or that may be existing and may not sound as exciting just because you haven't taken the time to think about those benefits. The flip side's true. If a startup's approaching you and maybe they're offering you less money, but maybe there's some factors that you can benefit from that you rate really high versus the money offset. So these are all things to think about when you weigh really small company versus really large company. Make sure you think about these trade-offs and you understand which ones you are and are not willing to make. Till next time, hope that helps. Hope you find your voice. See you later.